Create with Franz Sydney. Hello everyone, welcome to the show. This is episode 92. This is Franz Sydney. I am your host. And yes, I missed 1 week. Last week, I'm so sorry. I got too busy. Life gets really busy. So I'm really glad to be back here talking to Pamela Topchin. And we're going to talk about a really interesting topic that I hear all the time. And what is it? It's about being broken. Are you broken? Are you giving up every possible change or opportunity, dating, new jobs, having a baby, changing a hobby, getting a hobby, having new friends, trusting people because you are broken? Something happened to you and for some reason you see yourself as a broken vessel with no possibility of ever coming back. So I've got here a really good survivor. But you know what? Pamela didn't just survive. She's actually here to teach you how to thrive. So thank you, Pamela, for being with us. And introduce yourself. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you so much. Yes. As you said, I'm Pamela Topchin, and I am over in the U.S. on the West Coast. So I had lots of childhood trauma, and we could go into that more if we'd like to, as much as you'd like or not. It's up to you. But I've had a lot of childhood trauma, which led to trauma in my adult life. And then I had a total breakdown in life after being beat up, with domestic violence and having to get out of there with the police escort to be able to leave safely. And then I completely broke down and I had PTSD and CPTSD. And for about a year, I was unable to really function and unable to really take care of myself. And went through therapy, and through therapy is how I realized that all the stuff in the childhood really leads up to more trauma in your adulthood if it's not addressed or taken care of. And I didn't even realize that when I went for therapy or when I was in that sort of breakdown, which I call it my sort of the state that I broke down, like you were talking about being broken. I was totally broken. And I didn't even realize that all the stuff from the childhood led up to continued, trauma in your adult life and really just brings you down unless it's addressed and taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
What was the belief that you held about yourself after being the victim of all these tragic events? What did you think about yourself?
I felt like I didn't matter. I felt like I had no purpose on this earth. I felt like I was just numb, taking up space, just, barely existing. Didn't know that I had any reason here, any purpose in life, or purpose on this earth. Like you were mentioning, being broken, totally felt, I don't know that I felt broken as much as I felt like I was never fully whole, in my whole life. So when I had that complete breakdown, it wasn't that I was broken, it was just a continued, like this is where it was all leading up to this complete breakdown.
Mm-hmm. So when was the moment when you realized, okay, this has to stop, I need to see a therapist?
Yeah, so I went to the doctor, just the regular medical doctor. I thought I needed some sort of medication. I thought I needed antidepressants or anti-anxiety medication. I wasn't on any medication at all, and I knew I could not function, and I did not want to continue that way. And I was suicidal. And really what only kept me from acting on that was I had lost a sister as a teen in a car accident, and I didn't want to do that to my mother because she had already lost a child. It had been long ago, but still, it still affects you forever. And so I thought I can't go on like this. Like I said, barely existing. So when I went to the doctor, they set me up for therapy from there. But I still kind of thought, I don't know what I'm going to say at the therapist. I thought, I didn't even think about the whole childhood stuff until after I was in therapy. But when I went to the therapist, I thought, well, I was beat up by my ex-husband and now I can't function and I don't know why. I didn't know that it was much bigger than that. So, yeah.
So did it take you a long while to finally reconstruct who you are and what is your role here, why you're here on earth? All these questions that we always ask, why do I exist?
Yeah. It's really interesting because once I started therapy, it was just about 2 weeks in that I really had, like a light at the end of the tunnel. Like I really realized, oh my gosh, I'm going to get better. I couldn't believe it. I had no idea that I was going to be able to continue on with life. And then from there, it just really, and it still is, it just really grew and grew and grew. And things got better and better and better. The more I took care of myself, the more that I looked within myself and realized the things from my childhood, how it had affected my adult life. And all of that together really showed me sort of my purpose. So I have been a nurse for 14 years. And during this time of the breakdown, that I call it, I wasn't doing nursing. I couldn't. I could barely take care of myself. And so I started writing. I have a memoir that I published in January. But I started writing as part of my therapy, which was really helpful. I also started painting at that time, as we've talked about. And and so that was just a way to get creative, to get my story and my life story out of me, out on paper with the writing of it. And then the painting to be creative. And I had started working as a nurse again because I was getting myself back together, but it still was not really right for me. And I had taken a course in hypnotherapy long before that and was never able to realize that dream. So then when nursing was still very difficult for me, or not really what I wanted to do, I didn't want to be healing in that way. It didn't feel like it was really doing justice for the patients. So then I found another hypnotherapy school, and it just snowballed in a good way from there. So with the writing, the painting, the hypnotherapy. I'm just like living in my purpose now. Everything I do in my life today, I absolutely love. So much more than existing.
I know, that is so great to hear. And especially, as you might know, I'm very interested in art. I'm actually an illustrator. I teach art to young students, and I think I'm also an art therapy coach as well, which is not the same as art therapist. It's another thing. And I think the art is whatever is music, drawing, piano. As you can see behind me, there is a piano. For people who are listening, I don't see the piano. I promise there is one. There is one.
There is one. I see it.
Yeah, there isn't a house where I've been, and there is no piano there. There has to be. Because it's not about perfection or doing the big Michelangelo painting or whatever, but it's really about channeling this energy, emotions and feelings and creating something. Even if it's like literally tinkering on the instrument or destroying a pencil with anger, it just getting that out. And I think that's why, we're a bit different from animals. We can express our inner feelings in so many different ways. And then once we express them, can't you tell there is a big difference? When you bottle them up and you just swallow and you never say what you think to the other, you never express in yourself your anger, your happiness, whatever, then you feel like you're like one of these timed bombs. They might explode any minute or it might implode, right? That's why you broke down. Because you couldn't talk. Did you feel when you were a victim of all this that you couldn't really speak up, and why?
Right. So that started in my childhood, really. So my parents divorced when I was pretty young, and my father was not a part of my life. And we lived in poverty, and my mother was always gone. And I had two older siblings, which were supposed to stay and take care of me because I was younger and they never were around. So I had no guidance. I had no supervision, and I had a lot of sexual assaults and other things, living in the areas that we lived in. And I was just, a victim like my whole life. And I never spoke up because I felt like I didn't want my mother to be worried about me. I didn't think that anybody cared or anything could be done. So I never said anything. And speaking about that too, I always had shoes that never fit as a kid. And so then as a teen, I had bunion surgery because I never had shoes that fit when I was a child. So then going into adulthood, I was not the kind of person that ever spoke up for myself or even thought that my feelings or thoughts mattered. And when my sister was killed in the car accident, one of my mother's friends sat me down and said, she pointed right at me and she said, and this is just before I was 14, she said, "Don't you cry, don't you cry. You have to be strong for your mother, don't you cry." And so that just added on to the feeling of my feelings don't matter and who am I to speak up. So I had this, I never said anything. And that's part of where starting to write it out and going to therapy really makes a huge difference. And I always suggest that to people, whether it's just a journal, whether it's, talking to a friend or, hopefully getting some therapy or counseling or something, or even coaching, get it out of you. That makes a huge, huge difference. Like you said, keeping it bottled up, it's either going to implode or explode, and neither one of those are good. So you have to get it out of you. And that art, doing any form of art, like you mentioned also, really was very helpful because it's a creative outlet and you can express your feelings even without knowing what they are, even without thinking about it. You have that outlet. But writing things out was really a huge start for me, to be able to start recognizing my feelings. Yeah.
You start isn't that like it's a bit of a journey when you start thinking, okay, something is going on, something has to change, this pain is too much, and what has to change isn't just my environment, it's something within me, because I'm gonna live, I have two choices, don't I? We all have two choices. We can live as a victim of our environment, the weather, the jobs, the husband, the wife, right, whatever. Or we can live as a person that say, okay, this is happening, but it's not going to define who I am. Because isn't it true that some people, not all, but some people define themselves by the abuser action. So they think, oh, now I'm dirty because I've been abused. I'm weak because I've been trampled on. And that doesn't mean they were dirty or weak. It just means that somebody has done something really wrong, broken the law, and really done something really evil to you. But that doesn't define who you are. But I hear in other patients that they, as they grow up, they have built up this belief that they're not lovable, they're not smart enough, nobody will ever love them or like them, they're never gonna succeed because they had failure after failure after failure. And it's really a story that they're telling themselves. Because all we do is because of this story, So I'm glad that you finally decided to have this therapy. Can you remember a very, very specific moment when you sat there and you had this click in your brain and you said, I need to take action? What was the really specific moment? Is there one?
Well, it was before therapy. So it wasn't a specific moment. It was that it kept going on too long. It was like, I cannot continue on like this with having nightmares, with not being able to really get out of bed and take care of myself, be independent. So it was that led me to the doctor. And from the doctor actually wanted to put me in like a psychiatric hospital. And that was a real wake-up call for me. I could not believe that he thought I was that bad off that I needed to go into a hospital. So I convinced him that I was safe where I was, and that, and we set up therapy, and I convinced him, and obviously, it was true that I was fine where I was and that I would be going for the therapy. But I do remember there was a moment when I was in therapy, like I said, where I realized I had crossed, a threshold there of knowing that there was life ahead of me. And I could not have imagined that it was going to be like it is now. I just thought, oh, I'm going to be better. I'm going to be able to be independent and take care of myself.
So that's this understanding that there is light in the end of the tunnel. And what do you do now with all this new knowledge and understanding about yourself? So are you working with some people, clients? What is it you do to help others?
Yeah, so I am a hypnotherapist, and I mainly work with people that were like me, that are either on the verge of a breakdown, or they're just stuck in life and they don't realize what's keeping them back from moving on and living their purpose, or even loving life. So it's just with hypnotherapy mainly, and I am taking other classes for intuitive guidance and spiritual guidance and things like that to add on to my hypnotherapy. But for right now, yeah, and I'm working with people that are, where I was. And I also have written my book, and I feel like that's been a big inspiration. I've heard from others that's been a big inspiration for people to know that I've been there, and I've gotten out of that, and I know how that feels to be in that state of, just completely, unable to take, feeling hopeless and helpless and just completely broke down in your life, and not having any forward movement or feeling like there was anything ahead for you. So yeah, these are the people that I work with and help them to get unstuck and to a place of loving their life.
And
So,
loving themselves. Because
loving
if you don't
themselves. Yeah, you can't love your life until you love yourself, for sure. That's all part of it. Yeah.
So we have a few more minutes, guys. Let's have a look and see if you have any tips that you would like to give. Let's say that there is a person that had some or all of these episodes, maybe abuse, maybe a terrible thing like maybe alcoholic parents or somebody on heroin, and there were problems in the family. There was anything that caused maybe a trauma, or if not a diagnosed trauma, could be like this feeling of sinking in darkness, in despair, in depression. What is the first tip you would give to a person that is seeking for help but doesn't know where to start?
The first thing is reach out. Don't feel like you can't be helped because you don't know how that you can be helped. Doesn't mean there's not people out there that can help you. And just because what worked for your friend or your family member or somebody you know doesn't mean that that's going to work for you. So if you reach out for the same type of therapy or the same type of treatment that somebody else did and it doesn't work for you, don't give up. There's so many different kinds of therapies and treatments out there and different kinds of help out there. It takes patience and it takes diligence to find it, but find what works for you. And it might be a combination of things, and that's totally fine. We're all individuals, and our past is all individual, and our life is individual. So it's going to take something specific to you that's going to work for you. It's not necessarily the same medication or the same therapist or the same type of treatment that your friend had success with that's going to work for you. Don't give up, reach out. That's my number one thing. The second thing I would say, I really love that, just writing things out is so helpful. You don't have to write a book. You don't have to write it for anybody else to read it. Just get it out of you. And if you have trouble with your hands or you don't like your handwriting, just type it out, just get it out of you. You don't have to even know what you're going to say. Just start writing. Just start. And then you'll see it'll go. Just start writing whatever you're feeling that day, or just write something that you've been thinking about or something that's been weighing heavy on you, or if you're having nightmares, whatever it is, just start writing it out and it'll come. That has been very helpful. So a third thing
I'm making really fun expression here.
So I would say a third thing is to learn some self-care tips, get some self-care, know that you're important, whether it's even just making sure you eat that day, making sure you get enough sleep, knowing that you're important, your life is important.
Now, these are really good tips because, a lot of people don't even do that.
Right. And when you're in that stuck
basics.
space, you don't really think about yourself and your own comfort, let alone even showering, eating, that you matter. Go for a walk and smell the flowers. As corny as that sounds, it's very helpful to get out in the fresh air and just get some nice sights if you can.
Yeah, it's a massive difference.
A little bit of self-care.
Yeah, I don't know where I heard the story, or I read it very recently about this guy who was in the middle of a really deep depression and was feeling suicidal. And one day his therapist was in touch. I don't know if he called the therapist, whatever it was. I think he was in the States. And the guy said, I feel like I'm going to end it because I can't do this anymore. I can't even get out of bed. I can't do this, I can't do that. And he was just really, really down. Mm-hmm. And the therapist said, okay, can you do me a favor? He said, of course. Can you just stand up for me? I said, yeah. Right, can you put the shoes on? Put my shoes on? Okay, I'm going to put my shoes on. Right, can you just walk towards the door for me? And he walked towards the door. Can you open the door for me? Get the key, lock the door. How does it feel? And well, it's okay. Right, can you keep walking now and walk to the park that you told me is near your house? And I'll talk to you later. And then the guy said, well, I like this therapy, so he told me to do it, and I'm just going to do it, and then I'm going to die. And he went for a little stride in the park, a stroll. Mm-hmm. Here I am with my Italian vocabulary, right? And when he was there, he forgot about the suicide. He was hearing the birds singing. He saw people that talked to him. There were dogs to pet. There were skaters around. He forgot about it. He felt great, so he went home. And when he was back in touch with a therapist, he was feeling like 100 times better. And he said, he saved my life by getting me out of the house. Yes. I was there with a little Scrooge black cloud on my head when it's always raining. But as soon as I stepped out of that state, I just distracted myself with this. We have like a loop of thoughts that continue and go worse and worse and worse. And I wish you could see me gesticulating when I do that, because I'm amazing. I'm very Italian, true blue, die through, Italian, with all the hands moving all around. But truly, you move from this state of darkness and sinking down, and you get out and you start thinking about other people around you, what they're doing, what they're wearing, what colors are there, are you looking at flowers, are you looking, there's a new building there. There must be something that can divert your thoughts to something different. And getting out of anxiety, depression, trauma is also getting out of this constant thinking of how bad you're feeling.
Right, and getting out of the dark room.
Getting out, open those curtains, and
right.
We're not saying that if you go to the park every day, everything is going to change, but you inside yourself are going to change. Because there is a lot more in life than just how you feel in that moment. Because most people who have anxiety don't have anxiety 24 hours a day. When they have trauma, they don't feel the trauma 24 hours a day. So there are moments of happiness, and when we cultivate those moments, when we see maybe there's a hobby that is nourishing, like a yard work, or just petting your cat if you have one. Some people like sewing or knitting or working on carpentry, and making small projects or doing service projects. Go to the local charity, the local shelter, women's shelter. Offer your service, and you'll be surprised. There are hundreds of people who are suffering just like you, but just getting out there sometimes is so helpful to put things into perspective and say, well, we're all here. We all have something terrible that happened. We all want to live. We want to find purpose, even, things are really terrible. Think about the people in the war. They haven't all committed suicide. It's terrible, but they're still fighting. They're still wanting to survive. Yeah. Isn't that true? So that is the message that Pamela wants to give to you guys. We are not broken vessels. We are whole. We thought that we were small, not important bits, but actually, like this, there is a Japanese art when they pick up broken vessels and they put the bits together, and then all the little grain underneath is filled with gold. And we can be even better than that. We can become gold, because we're never gonna be like before. We have more wisdom, more knowledge, and we can use that to help others. That's amazing. Where can we find you if we want to work with you?
Yeah, so thank you. So hypnobreakthrough.com. That's HYPNO, and then just breakthrough. 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 Hypnobreakthrough.com.
Breakthrough.com. That's brilliant. Well, it was such a pleasure to talk to you, Pam. Thank you for coming.
Too. Yeah, Thank you.
A good thing to know that you can survive and you can thrive. It isn't just about surviving. We're gonna thrive here and create the life that we want, which is what my podcast is about. So thank you again for being in the show, and take care, Pam.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
So guys, this was it for the episode of today, and I hope you enjoyed it. And if you have a friend who is in distress and is not feeling great and is feeling down, let's have a chat. Let's see what we can do. It doesn't have to be me or Pam. You can just look for somebody that you resonate with. You're not trying to sell services here. We're trying to help. Maybe you have had a good word in the whole day, in a whole month, and we will tell you that you are loved, you matter, you are very important, your life is very important, so you are here. And so feel free to share and to give a good review to this podcast, and I'll see you very, very soon. Take care and bye-bye. You've listened to Create with Fran Sidney.